With a 16-23 record on the season, it seemed like all hope was lost for the Raptors and that the only direction for the team was to tank. But after winning 3 games in a row, there's a newfound glimmer of hope for the franchise. So in today's video, we're going to discuss the impossible decision that Masai Ujiri needs to make in choosing the right direction for this team. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports, your source for the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. If you want to see videos like this and live stream watch parties for every single Raptors game all throughout the week, then you need to be subscribed to Amateur Hour Sports. Help me on my road to 14,000 subscribers on this channel. And if you find yourself enjoying this video along the way, please be sure to smash that like button. It does go a long way to helping out the channel, helping us get on some more recommended pages and growing the Amateur Hour army. But the video in question today, once again, we're revisiting the right direction for this team, because it seems like with every game that goes by, there's some newfound evidence to kind of support the Raptors going for it on the season or not going for it on the season. As I mentioned in the intro, the Raptors were 16-23, 7 games under 500, and at that point, it really seemed like there was no hope. The Raptors were playing some terrible basketball in some bad losses to the teams like the Milwaukee Bucks with that ugly 13-12 first quarter scoreline in that game. It just seemed like there was no hope. It seemed like maybe the players on court were starting to lose a little bit of belief, other than that incredible late comeback against the Bucks. It just seemed like the vibe wasn't right. Something was amiss with this team. Fans felt it. People watching it felt it. People in the comments here, in the live stream chats on this channel, it just feel like something was amiss, and that you're looking at a pretty top-heavy draft class there. That might be the best way for the Raptors to go about this season, given what was going on. The trade deadline was a little bit over a month away. There were guys that had some value. Players like Gary Trent Jr. were catching interest amongst teams around the NBA. It just felt really, really bad to be a Raptors fan. But a week later, and all of a sudden, things seem a lot brighter here. The Raptors have won 3 games in a row, albeit against teams that, you can kind of expect them to win. 2 games against the Charlotte Hornets, which really should be easy wins for the Raptors, and that win against the Portland Trail Blazers, where Portland, they're a decent team, but the Raptors at home, they were slight favorites in that game. They've won all 3 games they were expected to win here in this stretch, but just a newfound sense of maybe this team still has enough to be a playoff team this season. Yes, there's still 4 games under 500, but those 3 games felt a little bit different as well. It didn't feel like the Raptors just kind of begrudgingly won those games. It felt like they had really good performances in those games, particularly on the offensive end, because defensively there were some lapses against the Hornets, particularly a few nights ago when we played them, rather than last night's game where the Raptors, of course, won as well. But even that Portland game, the Raptors seem to really have a nice blend of action with their team right now. It seems like the offense is a lot more pleasing to the eye. It's much less of a chore to watch this team play offense right now, and much more of a joy to watch them play. I'm sure if you've been watching the games, you've been seeing the way the Raptors are moving the ball so much better, actually using more offensive schemes, going to the pick and roll way more often. Like the Raptors actually using the pick and roll to a consistent degree and having a plethora of success in those settings. And I think what's really telling about the Raptors and these numbers and the way they're improving right now, we're seeing the assist numbers of players like Scottie Barnes and Fred VanVleet go up. Scottie Barnes had 9 assists, 0 turnovers yesterday. Fred VanVleet had 8 assists and only 1 turnover yesterday, which was really great to see just overall the way the Raptors have been moving the ball. Albeit it is against some poor teams, albeit, again, like I said, games that you would expect the Raptors to win here. But it's clear, extraordinarily clear, that this team has not played up to their abilities this season. 19-23 still is a little bit of an ugly record as we now move beyond the halfway stage of the NBA season, but there's flashes of the brilliance. We're seeing that there is a lot of talent on this team. It's about utilizing this talent correctly, and with 40 games of basketball remaining, is there still some hope out there that this team can be more than just one that falls into the draft? And that's going to be the difficulty when it comes to choosing the direction for this team. A little bit under a month away, and we spoke about 2 days ago in the previous video on this channel that the front office are going to buy as much time as possible as we get towards the trade deadline to figure out exactly what this team needs and what direction this team should be going in. And once again, I'm going to reiterate that I don't think you need to be on the extreme of either side. I think it's okay to position yourself kind of in the middle right now because I'm in the sense that, I believe that there is a lot of talent on this team. I believe that there is talent that can be harnessed, and I believe that this team is good enough to not only get themselves into a playing spot. I think this team legitimately is good enough still to make a run and finish as a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't think top 5 is quite attainable, but I think the 6th seed is still something where the Raptors can actually legitimately get into a spot and attain that sort of position, which it'd be really good for the development of this team, development of guys like Scotty Barnes and other younger players in this team, OG Anunoby, Siakam taking another step. I think it'd be really good for this team to go on a really big run to end off the year and really provide that spark to this team. That being said, you get to the playoffs and you finish, let's say, best case is the 6th seed, you're likely playing one of Milwaukee, Boston, Brooklyn. If it's not them, you're playing Philadelphia or Cleveland. Now, I think that Philadelphia, Cleveland are beatable teams to the Raptors, though I don't think they'd win that series. And I very much at this point, based on what we've seen from Milwaukee, Boston, Brooklyn, I very much don't think those are winnable series for the Raptors. I mean, sure, there's always a possibility. I never say never in sports, but you got to feel like that's a first-round exit waiting to happen for the Raptors to get there. So, on the contrary side, I mean, to lose first round as a 6th seed, first we have to make the 6th seed. Otherwise, you're in the play-in tournament. You have to get to the playoffs just, to play an even better seed, right? On the flip side, well, the Raptors, they're still pretty close to getting a real good draft pick. So, as far as the top 5 in the East being unattainable, I think the bottom 4 in the league is also unattainable. The bottom 4 in the NBA are some real bad teams that the Raptors' record is just not going to get towards. Best case scenario from a draft pick perspective, you have the 5th or 6th best odds at getting the first overall pick and the coveted prize of Victor Wembanyama. And based on the lottery odds, it's actually not that bad of a scenario, but you can think pretty heavily that this team has a good shot at ending up with a top 4 pick, possibly even a top 7 pick where there are some good players available to just complement this core a little bit further. So I see the appeal of going for that. I see the appeal of trying to get the most out of this current roster, but with this current roster, the one thing that has even still not really upset me, but I still see something wrong with this starting 5. It's obvious there are 5 great players involved with this starting 5, but it's always somebody who has to take a big step back and just sacrifice a lot of their own personal usage to make the team better. Over the last few games, that has 100% been Fred VanVleet. Last game in particular, yesterday against the Charlotte Hornets, Fred VanVleet took 8 shots. Only 8 shots. This was like the focal point of our offense for half of the season last year, only taking 8 shots. Now, he had 11 points efficiently, 4 for 8 shooting, and he also added in 8 assists, as I mentioned earlier, and 5 rebounds. He's really been stuffing the stat sheet lately, taking a step back. But Fred is paid a little bit more than a player that should be doing things like that, and he's going to be paid in the offseason, whether it is the Raptors or somebody else. He's going to be getting paid more than somebody who is required to do a job like that. It just feels like this Raptors starting lineup just has too much talent to go around. There's too many people that you need to feed, and somebody is always going to be on the wrong side of it. Now, in this current stretch, we're in this situation. It is what it is. Fred VanVleet, I think it's very respectable, and I think fans need to acknowledge that this guy is taking a step back here. He is reluctantly, likely, but still taking a step back for the betterment of the team, and I think very much that it is working. But with the trade deadline coming up, you still need to make a decision about, okay, what sort of trade can you make? Gary Trent is the only person who seemingly has been made available by the Toronto Raptors, but also is Scotty Barnes the only real person that is untouchable for this team? I think the way Siakam is playing, you can't really trade him. Scotty Barnes is going to remain on the team. OG seems like a coveted piece. Like Fred VanVleet or Gary are the people that may need to be on the trade block here, but is there really going to be that massive blockbuster trade for this team, and what is it going to look like? Is it going to make the team worse and get us towards a draft pick? Is it going to make us better? I think ultimately the Raptors will just be looking for value in more so Gary Trent Jr., but also probably just seeing and feeling around for what you can get for Fred VanVleet at this trade deadline, especially with him starting to take a little bit of a turn for the better in terms of his play on the court. I don't think there's going to be the massive trade that shows, oh, wow, they have made it so obvious we're tanking. Oh, wow, they've made it so obvious that we're really going for this season. I think the Raptors are going to be looking for value. They're going to be looking for draft assets. They're going to be looking for player young assets as well to just beef up the depth overall and add in some pieces that you have a little bit more flexibility on time with, rather than an expiring contract of Gary Trent Jr. and an expiring contract of Fred VanVleet. Ultimately, the decision-making will be as a result of the way the Raptors play. As I mentioned, easiest remaining schedule in the NBA, took care of business against the Hornets in 2 straight games. Now, tomorrow's game against the Atlanta Hawks will also be significant. The Atlanta Hawks are a fine team, but I'm assuming the Raptors are going to be pretty close to even, I think they might even be favorites for this game. The Raptors, another opportunity to snatch a win here, and if they do that, 3 games back of 500, well now all of a sudden, that seems like a lot more attainable of a task than the 7 games back of 500. And the front office will have more decisions to make. Right now, as far as the best decision for this franchise, as a fan, I always want to see this team win, but there's, the devil on my other shoulder that's saying, wow, look at all those draft picks available. Ultimately, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think that there is a reasonable way to argue that it's better for this team to win games. I think there's a reasonable argument as well that makes sense that this team should be losing basketball games. There's no winning solution. There's no losing solution. It's about the front office determining what they think is the best method for the success for this team in the present as well as for the long term. And I wouldn't want anybody else to be in charge of that decision than Masai Ujiri. I certainly wouldn't want to be doing it because I'm sitting here telling you I have no idea what the best method is. I'm sure Masai Ujiri has a better idea, and I trust him fully with the front office to make this right for this season. So that wraps up for today on Amateur Hour Sports. If you did enjoy, please make sure you have smashed that like button. It goes a long way to supporting the channel, as I mentioned, and make sure you're subscribed to Amateur Hour Sports for more videos like this all throughout the week and live stream watch parties for every Raptors game. I'll see you again next time as the Raptors take on the Hawks in tomorrow's live stream.